So yesterday a friend asked me, what if Africa was never colonized? And for a moment, I was silent. Because that question is not just history. It is possibility. It is power. It is pain. And it is a future that never got the chance to exist. Tonight we imagine that future. Before colonization, Africa was not a dark continent. It was a continent of empires, trade routes, universities, architecture, and organized political systems. The Mali Empire controlled gold trade that supplied much of the medieval world. Its famous ruler, Mansa Musa, was so wealthy that when he traveled to Mecca in 1324, he reportedly disrupted economies with the amount of gold he distributed. In West Africa, the Songhai Empire built one of the largest empires in African history. In southern Africa, Great Zimbabwe was an advanced city built with massive stone structures, without cement, proving architectural mastery. In East Africa, Swahili city-states traded with Arabia, India, and even China across the Indian Ocean. Africa was connected. Africa was building. Africa was evolving. Now imagine, what if that evolution was never interrupted? In 1884 to 1885, European powers met at the Berlin Conference and divided Africa among themselves. Without a single African leader present, borders were drawn with rulers, not with cultural understanding. Ethnic groups were split. Rival communities were forced into single states. But what if that never happened? Africa's borders might have formed naturally, based on language, trade networks, and cultural alliances. Conflicts caused by forced divisions might have been fewer. Instead of copying European governance, African states might have modernized their own system. Before colonization, Africa was already central to global trade: gold, salt, ivory, iron, textiles. Colonialism restructured African economies to export raw materials and import finished goods. That pattern still affects many economies today. But in an uncolonized Africa, industrialization may have started earlier in major kingdoms. Gold from West Africa might have funded African factories, not European industrial revolutions. Coastal trade cities might have grown into global financial capitals. Imagine Lagos, Mombasa, or Dakar becoming 19th century industrial giants. Imagine African-built railways designed to connect African markets, not just extract resources to ports. Centers like Timbuktu already housed thousands of manuscripts in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and law. Without colonization disrupting institutions, African universities might have expanded centuries earlier. What if Africa had led research in tropical medicine? What if space programs rose from Nairobi? What if technological revolutions carried African philosophies at their core? Innovation would not have been imitation. It would have been original. Colonial rule suppressed languages, traditions, and belief systems. Many Africans were taught that their identity was inferior. But without colonization, African languages might dominate global literature. Traditional architecture might define modern skylines. Films, philosophy, and art would not be rediscovered. They would have evolved uninterrupted. The world might look culturally different, very different. But would everything be perfect? No. Africa had wars before colonization. Empires rose and fell. Power struggles existed. So an uncolonized Africa would still face challenges: internal rivalries, leadership crises, economic competition. But those problems would be self-determined. History would be written from within, not imposed from outside. If Africa was never colonized, Europe's industrial rise may have been slower. The global balance of power might look completely different. The slave trade's long-term damage might have unfolded differently. Global wealth distribution could be less unequal or unequal in different ways. Perhaps Africa would stand as multiple superpowers today. Perhaps global languages would include more African tongues. Perhaps the idea of developed and developing nations would not exist as we know them. But maybe the most important question is not, what if Africa was never colonized? Maybe the real question is, what can Africa become now? Because colonization shaped history, but it does not define destiny. The continent still holds the youngest population on Earth. It holds vast natural resources. It holds culture, creativity, resilience, and power. History was interrupted, but the story is not finished. So this question, what if Africa was never colonized, is not just about the past. It is about power. It is about identity. It is about destiny. Because maybe the greatest loss was not land, not gold, not borders. Maybe it was time. Time to grow without interruption. Time to define ourselves without permission. Time to rise on our own terms. But here is the truth. History cannot be undone. Yet the future is still unwritten. This is Marlin Media Documentaries, where we challenge history and imagine what is still possible.